Hello, everyone. Welcome to In the Know with Dr. Aidoo. Happy New Year. I hope that you had a wonderful holiday break and that you are excited about the spring semester. I'm excited because I get to bring you an interview, and it is with Matt Carlos, who is the Assistant Director of Student Support and Community Outreach at the Student Support and Advocacy Center. So let's go talk to Matt.
Good morning.
Good morning, Matt. Welcome to In the Know with Dr. Aidoo. Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year to you. Thank you so much for the opportunity. I'm excited.
Great, thank you. So I have a few questions for you, and I'm just gonna get into them. So first of all, could you tell us a bit about your background and how long you've been at Mason, and maybe shed some light on your role in the
Sure, yeah, absolutely.
SSAC?
Yeah, so a little bit about my background. I have a background really in mental health. Higher ed was actually like a second career passion that I found, which was great. A lot of people find one and that's it, but I was blessed enough to find a second one in higher ed. So kind of my background, I went to a cool community college, and really there I had a great experience with faculty and staff, and actually a professor that was a psychology professor. And that really kind of piqued my interest in the world of mental health and counseling. Graduated from there, went to Old Dominion University. I got a bachelor's in psychology there, and again, really had a great interest in psychology and counseling and more awesome interactions with faculty and administrators there. And that really stuck with me, kind of, folks that really helped guide me through my journey in higher ed.
Right.
From there, I came to Mason and actually went to the Master's in Counseling program here at Mason. Loved that, and the plan was to be a therapist. But the whole time, most of the time, while I was in that program, I was actually working as a graduate assistant here in SSAC. So I was working with students in distress and students in crisis, and it was kind of, bring up this new interest in higher ed. I was like, oh, well, this is really cool. This is fun. And I got to use a lot of those attending skills that I was learning as a counselor with students that I was working with that were in distress and crisis.
Right.
So, I graduated from the counseling program here, and there was a position that was open, and Mason loves to hire its grads. So I applied and was fortunate enough to be hired here by Mason. So I've been in this role, been with SSAC as a grad student. It was late 2017, and then have been the assistant director for student support and community outreach for close, I think it's 3 years. It'll be 4 years in May. So been enjoying this time here.
So that's really cool. And I think it's so common in a sense that we think we are going on this track, and then things come in and we kind of veer a little bit into what some may call our purpose. So that's really cool that that's what happened. So in the SSAC, what are some of the services you have available for our students?
Yeah, it's a great question. So we have a few different really functional areas. I will tell you, each one of those functional areas does really 3 things. So programming, prevention, and then one-on-one consultation. So what I'm going to do, I think would be most helpful, is to tell you what those functional areas are, and just keep that little nugget in mind that each area is going to do programming, prevention, and then one-on-one consultations.
All right.
So in no particular order, the first area is we are a confidential space for survivors of sexual and interpersonal violence. So our staff there can work with students to really identify what resources are available here at Mason, in the community, safety planning, boundaries, and really anything that student is needing for that specific type of support. Next area, financial well-being, really cool. It's one of our newer areas, but it's been around for a while now. And we've just a fantastic team that works with students when it comes to paying for school. It can be anything from understanding more about financial aid, credit, budgeting, you
Right.
name it. When it comes to paying for school or having to do with finances in college, our team really will work with students. As I tell them all the time, I wish I had known that when I was in school
Hmm.
because it's
Me
really
too.
helpful. In that functional area also, we operate what's called the Student Emergency Fund or Stay Mason. And
Okay.
that provides financial support to students that have experienced an unexpected financial hardship.
Right.
And there are some requirements to receive that type of funding. More of that information can be found on our website. But
Hmm.
generally speaking, a student has to at least have completed 12 credits here at the university,
Okay.
have at least a 2.0, and then they've
Mhm.
exhausted other financial resources. So
All right.
our team can always dive more into what those specific requirements are with a student, but it's really helpful for folks to know it's there and it exists. Definitely the last few years with COVID, it's been something that a lot of students have been able to really take advantage of and
Hmm.
really help them, continue their progress here at Mason.
Right.
Next area, substance use and collegiate recovery. So that really, again, is working with students that are in the recovery process, or
Right.
maybe they have questions about specific substances or a friend that has experienced something with a substance use.
Hmm.
Works from a harm reduction model. Um, and then we have a great group that's actually a collegiate recovery group for any students that just want to connect with more students that are identifying as being in recovery. And so those
Okay.
groups will meet here in SSAC.
Wow. Okay. So these are three really important areas, I think, for our students. Um,
Absolutely. And again, all those areas, anytime a student's interested in it, they can always give us a call and say, hey, I want to learn more about this, or they can check out our website. And we've got really a lot of the information there listed, but we're happy to take phone calls as well. Um, Next area we have is respondent support services. So this is another one of our confidential areas that we work
okay.
with students. So
Okay.
any student that is going through the Title IX process here at the university. So again, that staff are going to work with students to really identify support services here at Mason and what's available for a student that's going through that process.
Right. Could you
Um, Go ahead.
uh sorry, but could you explain a little bit more what you mean by a student going through the Title IX
Sure.
process?
Yes, sure. So generally, any student that it has been identified by the university and is going through something that falls within Title IX
Okay.
here at
Okay.
the university, students that are going through that process,
Uh-huh.
it can be a very, concerning time for a lot of students. A lot of students say, hey, what's available here at Mason? What resources are available? So our staff, again, can work with the student and say, here's what's available at Mason for you as you go through this process.
Right. Right.
Really, the whole idea of that is so students don't have to navigate resources by themselves.
I can imagine that that kind of support is greatly appreciated by the students who find themselves in those situations. To know that there's somebody who's willing to walk with them through it, I think that would be really great. So how then, having these amazing programs and opportunities in your office, how can a student access any of these services?
Sure, that's another great question, very important question. I guess before I dive into that, I'll tell you two other areas that kind of our last two areas.
Right.
Generally, students in distress and students in crisis, there's a lot of always intersect between our functional areas. Nothing's, ever just one specific thing. So
Hmm.
when we find students that maybe have an experience that doesn't fall right within one of those categories, it really just falls into, students in distress or students that's in a crisis. We can
Okay.
work with those students as well. And
Hmm.
that the last functional area is food insecurity. So we
Okay.
operate the Patriot Pantry, which is our on-campus food bank. Students
Right.
can receive free non-perishable food and hygiene items from the pantry.
Okay.
So those are really all of our functional areas in a nutshell. Everything kind of breaks down a little smaller, and there's different resources that are offered within each of those functional areas. But those
Right.
are broadly the functional areas that we work with within our office.
Okay. Great. And so again, if a student wanted to access your office for one of these services, how would they go about doing that?
Sure. So lots of different ways, but probably the most direct ways on our website. we actually have an online referral form. So a
Okay.
student that can just go to ssac.gmu.edu to our website, and it says referral. And so they can do a self-referral and say, hey, I'm a Mason student. They'll actually log in with their Mason credentials. So it'll automatically, identify them as a Mason student. And really the most important thing is a narrative section. So just tell us a little bit about what's going on, help us understand a little bit about what you're looking for. As I mentioned, since we have multiple functional areas, we're going to want to get that student to the most appropriate staff member and team, really to provide that support that they're looking for.
Right.
They can also just give us a call. We're happy to kind of talk with them on the phone. We'll always ask them to do that self-referral. It really helps with our case management process. They can also just walk in our office. We also have students who just, walk in. We're in sub 1, suite 3200, and students can just hop in or come by and say, hey, I'm looking for a little bit of support, and we'll ask them to do the online referral form. Someone will review it that day. Sometimes we're able to meet with students right away, and sometimes we'll say, okay, a staff member is going to get back to you, within 1 or 2 days, through an email or a phone call, because we can do that actual outreach to students and say, hey, you submit a referral form, when's a good time for us to meet with you?
Right. Okay. Operational hours for which students can, or during which students can access your services. Do you have a set time, or because it's online, they can pretty much fill those forms? How does it work in terms of hours?
Yeah, it's a good question. So our office is, we follow the same hours as the university. So on holidays, the university is closed. Our office is generally closed.
Okay.
But really, our office is open 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. Scheduling within those functional areas, it kind of depends. Each functional area has a little bit of different scheduling that they have, but we'll try and meet with students as soon as possible.
Right.
And we offer in-person appointments if students want to come in and meet with us. We do telephone calls, and we can also do Zoom appointments as well.
Oh, okay, cool. So there's a lot of flexibility with that.
Yeah, whatever is most comfortable with the student, we're happy to do that.
So as you probably know, our school had a food drive last November, and we were able to donate some food to the Patriot Pantry. But I was just wondering, are there other ways in which our school community can give back to your office, to the Patriot Pantry, or any of the other areas?
Yeah, absolutely. And I will say, on behalf of the pantry and the staff, thank you so much for making that donation. We continue to see the numbers of students that use the pantry grow each semester. So I can't say enough about how helpful it is to have, schools and, colleges within the university providing that support. And then it also, with food insecurity, there's this stigma, that a lot of students say, it stops me from using the pantry. So when you have lots of folks in a community and a university rallying and saying, hey, we understand this is an issue, we're all here to support, you and each other, it really helps to reduce that level of stigma around food insecurity. So it's so helpful. I always think, kind of in that area of the stigma, having faculty talk about food insecurity, including information on your syllabus about the Patriot Pantry, SSAC, that can be really impactful for students, because, if they're hesitant to talk to you directly about it, you may say, hey, at the end of my syllabus, there's some helpful resources here at Mason. So having the information for the Patriot Pantry can be really helpful. Students can access it. We have an online ordering form as well, and a contactless pickup. So students just go to the online website, they log in with their Mason credentials, and from there, they select whatever items it is that they need. Our team then fills that order, and we'll email them and say, hey, your order is ready to be picked up. And then anytime sub 1 is open, students can come right by and pick it up.
Okay.
So, kind of being, aware of how that process works. So anytime students are like, they may mention something to you about food insecurity, you can say, oh, well, did you know Mason had a food bank? We also have flyers that we're happy to provide to anyone, and little cards that folks keep in their office. Sometimes when you're meeting with students, you can say, hey, seems like the pantry may be helpful to you. Did you know Mason had a food pantry?
Right. Oh, okay. Yeah, those are helpful tips for
And the
what?
president currently has a challenge, President Washington has a challenge to raise 5,000 pounds of food and supplies for the pantry. So, being part of the president's challenge is another way you can help support the pantry.
Oh, okay. Did not know about that. So that's good to know. So
Absolutely.
can you tell me a little bit more about that challenge?
Absolutely. So the challenge is to all of Mason to help the Patriot Pantry raise 5,000 pounds worth of food and hygiene supplies.
Uh-huh.
I believe that's running through February. I want to say it started at the end of last semester.
Right.
So we've had a lot of different colleges and different departments come by and drop things by as all part of that challenge and that
Right.
goal to try and raise supplies for the pantry.
Oh, would you happen to have a flyer that you can send to me later and I'll
Yep,
be happy to pass it on?
we
Yeah.
got a flyer and a video, and I'm happy to send you the link for both.
Oh, yes. Okay, good. I did not know. Okay, that's fascinating. Maybe other people in my school knew, but I did not. So that's good information. Um, so you mentioned that an important piece of all your different areas is programming, right? And so I was wondering, is there a way that students can receive communication or, information about whatever programming you have? I'm thinking, like the financial one, but even the other areas that it would be helpful for students to know. So is there some form of communication with students?
Yeah, absolutely. We're definitely on social media,
Okay.
Facebook, Instagram. Those would be great ways for students to see often what's happening, what's going on.
Mhm.
We do a lot of our programs also in Mason 360, so we're advertising things there as well.
Okay.
But any student group, any org can always send us an email or actually on Mason 360
Mhm.
request a specific program. And then
Okay.
our staff will come out and do that program for students. And we do lots of, programming. It could be talking to groups about a specific topic area. It could
Right.
be talking specifically about, just services that we provide.
Right.
So those would be great ways if a student is like, hey, I'd really like to know more about, collegiate recovery.
Right.
Awesome. I work with a group or org. Could you come out and tell us a little bit more about that area? And we're happy to do that.
Oh, okay, that's good to know. We do have a number of student organizations in our school, so that would be good information for them to have. And what is the process in terms of those invitations outside of, you said Mason 360, but is there like a general email address that they can access, or use to?
Absolutely. They could just email our main office or call our main office
Okay.
and say, hey, I'm part of the student group. Could you connect me with, the financial well-being team? I'd like to, request they do a program. And then that team could say, hey, absolutely. We're going to ask you just to fill out our request form. It helps us with our process.
Mhm.
And really also make sure we know exactly what program
Mhm.
the student is asking for and what's the sizes. That way we can make sure we're prepared and have enough material when we come out as well.
Okay, great. So maybe one of the things is when you're sending me the links for the video for the challenge, maybe you could include that email address and I'll make sure to include it in the caption for this video so students have it on hand to use.
Yeah, absolutely.
That would be really helpful. So this is really cool. Like many offices on campus, we hear the name, we kind of have a slight understanding. Oh, let me speak for myself, I hear about an office. So it's always helpful to talk to someone who's there and who can really give us more information about it. I keep telling students that, we have these amazing resources on Mason campus to help them on their journey through, the university. So I'm excited that we've been able to talk. But as we wrap up, is there anything else that you can tell us? Maybe I didn't think to ask about for our
Yeah,
students
I think great questions. I would say maybe just two things. I always say I think it's helpful for students to know that we understand that being a student is hard, right? And, there's a lot of challenges that come up while you're a student. And what we want students to know is that's why we're here. We're here really to connect, to help students, navigate, those challenges, what's going on. We also know that the Mason is really big, right? And so there are lots of different policies and there are different options that are available. But that's why we're here, and it's never, a student should say, oh, I don't know if this problem is big enough to get help. If you need some help, we're here to help you. We want to connect with you. And that's why we're here. I would say the other piece is really for, faculty, or staff. So the same way students are able to connect with our office, anytime there is a concern for a student, our office is the appropriate office for you to make the referral. So on our website, it will also say make a referral. And so you as a faculty or an instructor may say, hey, I'm a little concerned about Matt. Matt started off the semester really strong, and then Matt shared with me, he's experiencing some financial hardship, or maybe he's got, some mental health concerns that he shared with me, and he's really looking for support. As an instructor, I really want to make sure I support Matt. So what we always will encourage folks to do is really have a conversation with students and say, hey, thank you for sharing that information with me. I learned about this great resource called SSAC through an awesome channel, Dr. Abina's channel. I want to try and support you. Can I make a referral to SSAC? They can then reach out to you by email or by a phone call. It's up to you, right? So make sure you empower the student to say, you're not forced to work with SSAC. It's really up to you. If you feel like now's a good time, great. If you feel like, well, not right now, maybe a little bit later, that's okay too. The choice is yours, but I want you to know these are resources that are available to you here at the university. So I think those would be two extra little nuggets to kind of leave you with.
And I think those are great nuggets. Thank you for adding those, because it's helpful for us as faculty and staff to also know how we can be helpful to our students through the SSAC. So thank you for that. Is that process confidential?
Great question.
In terms of if a faculty made a referral, is that a confidential referral, or how does
Great question. So short answer is no, it's not a confidential referral because of FOIA, right? A student could always request, any information that has their name on it at the university, basically. And that's why we really encourage you to have that conversation with the student for really two reasons. One, it's not confidential. But the second reason to have that conversation is students are 90 to 99% more responsive to our outreach if they're saying, oh, I know why I'm getting a call from SSAC or an email. It's because I talked to Dr. Abina and she shared with me that she was going to reach out, versus them getting a random phone call from me saying, hey, I'm Matt from SSAC. I'd like to talk to you about resources. They're going to be like, well, thanks for calling me, Matt. I have no idea who you are. So it's always helpful to have that conversation.
Yeah.
But I will say, Alyssa, if sometimes faculty say, well, could be a difficult conversation, I'm not really sure how to have that conversation with a student, we're happy to consult with you. So you can give our office a call and say, hey, I've got this student named Matt. I'm not really sure how to have this conversation. Could you give me some pointers? And we're happy to do that.
Oh, that's helpful. So you're saying even before, a faculty member may have that conversation, that maybe they get some help in terms of how to go about it from your office. That's great. That's
absolutely. Absolutely. We're happy to do that consultation with you over the phone. We'll still ask for you to do a referral, that online referral, because it preserves the authenticity of your experience with that student. We'll also ask you if there are any safety concerns. So if it's immediate safety concern, we're always going to tell you to call 911 or GMU PD. If it's not, then we're happy to understand what's going on, to walk you through how to make that referral, tell you about resources that you could share with a student, and then we'll always do that outreach.
Okay, that is really good to know. I just want you to repeat, if you don't mind, of the functional areas you described. Some are confidential and some are not.
Yes.
Could you just reiterate which ones are confidential so students know?
Sure. So our functional area where we work with survivors of sexual and interpersonal violence, that is confidential, which means that we're not going to share that you're working with our office without your consent. The other would be our respondent support services. So anyone that's going through that Title IX process, again, that is confidential within our office. We're not going to share that you're working with our office unless we have consent from you.
Okay. But all the others are not confidential.
Right, exactly.
Okay.
So, we would, say it's private really, right? So
Private, yeah.
as a faculty, maybe you're saying, hey, I'm really concerned about Matt. If you have as an instructor, if you have a need to know, an academic need to know, say, hey, I want to work with Matt regarding, an incomplete. I know he told me he was going to work with your office. Do you have any suggestions? If it's not a non-confidential area, I might say, hey, Matt, Dr. Urbina is asking, is it okay if I share that you and I are working together and what's the plan that we've developed? I could reach out to you as the instructor and say, hey, yep, here's what we're working on. Here's what's going on. That's very different in our confidential areas.
Right. Okay. So good to know the differences so we're not making any mistakes here. Well, Matt, this has been information that I find very helpful, and I believe that our school community will find helpful also. So thank you so much for taking the time to talk with me. And for everyone, here we are. There is this office, SSAC, which stands for Student Support and Advocacy Center. And as Matt has described in detail, they're there to help you. So if there is any reason why you need some help, I think you should not hesitate and you should reach out. And as Matt said, if you reach out, you may not even know which service you need. You're going to find someone to help you navigate that and figure out what is the best fit for you. And so please keep that in the back of your mind. Maybe you don't need it today and maybe you never need it, but just in case, they're there for you. So thank you so much, everyone. I hope you have an excellent beginning of the semester. And again, until the next time, with In the Know with Dr. Aidoo, take good care of yourselves. Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.